Hello there, you're tuned to All 24 News World News Program, and these are tonight's top stories. Algiers calls for a united African stand against covert interference and disinformation, warning of silent wars destabilizing the continent. Coming up next, Algerian and Sahrawi campaigners launch a push to prosecute Rabat in international courts, and Sahrawi government urges the US to drop neutrality and back peace. Also ahead, Zionist forces unleash relentless airstrikes across Gaza Strip, leveling entire blocks as the World Food Programme warns of a looming famine. And Moscow insists it honors the ceasefire, but Zelensky accuses the Kremlin of sabotage, proposing a 30-day pause to halt the bloodshed. Full reports up next. Welcome back to the program. First up tonight, Algeria is rallying African nations to fight what it calls a new wave of colonialism, not with guns, but with information warfare. At a high-level security meeting in Algiers, Algeria's top African affairs official Salma Mansouri sounded the alarm, saying fake news and psychological manipulation are the latest fronts in neo-colonialism. She warned that foreign powers are using disinformation to sow division and undermine stability across Africa. Her message was clear: African intelligence agencies need to unite and tackle these threats early, because in the digital era, protecting the truth is protecting national security.
The significance of this specialized framework lies in its ability to open channels for the exchange of visions and expertise among African security and intelligence agencies at a time when non-traditional threats, chief among them disinformation, have become some of the most prominent cross-border challenges facing our countries and continent.
In the same context, Algeria's top African affairs official Salma Mansouri says free speech is being exploited as a cover of digital manipulation. Speaking in Algiers, she revealed alarming new details. At least 20 African elections have been targeted by coordinated disinformation, with the Sahel region hit especially hard during fragile political transitions. She calls it cognitive warfare, silent warfares, a battle where facts are the first casualty and social media is the battlefield.
Today we are not merely discussing a media or technical phenomenon, but rather one of the most dangerous forms of modern threats, the information and cognitive wars that target the internal stability of states and the cohesion of societies. These are carried out using invisible tools, neither seen nor heard, yet capable of planting doubt, fueling division, and undermining public trust and institutions. Information which once served as a tool for enlightenment and knowledge has now become an unconventional weapon used to dismantle societies, influence state decisions, and steer public opinion toward dubious agendas, all in disguise of freedom, of expression, and digital openness. Unfortunately, Africa has become an active battleground for this kind of silent warfare. According to independent reports, disinformation campaigns have increasingly targeted electoral processes in over 20 African countries in recent years. These campaigns aim to erode public trust in elections, cast doubt on the legitimacy of institutions, and incite disorder and division. We are all aware through field experience of how digital platforms are exploited to spread fake news, tarnish national figures, and stoke ethnic and regional tensions, posing a grave threat to the social fabric. This has created flashpoints of instability and witnessed in several Sahel countries during transitional phases marked by systematic digital intrusions.
The Algerian diplomat called for a united front against sophisticated disinformation campaigns. She proposed a dual approach, beefing up cybersecurity defenses while developing homegrown tech solutions to counter foreign manipulation. Let's take a listen again.
هذا الواقع يستدعي منا تحرك.
This reality calls for a coordinated response, security-wise, strategically, and above all, one grounded in awareness. The first point that must be emphasized is that combating disinformation is not solely the responsibility of journalists or technical experts. It is a sovereign priority and one of the key domains of national security. From this platform, I would like to propose 3 levels of joint action that we can discuss during this session and throughout this forum. First, the level of vigilance and information coordination between agencies. Here, we could establish an African mechanism for monitoring disinformation, operating within a framework of African-based artificial intelligence. Second, the legal and institutional level. We must call for the creation of an African charter to combat disinformation, integrated into the African cybersecurity system. This charter should also obligate major digital companies to cooperate with African states in regulating and monitoring targeted content. Third, the preventive and societal level. Protecting against psychological and media influence requires a new kind of media literacy that starts in school, extends to universities, and is reflected in public media. Civil society, youth, and cultural elites must be involved in building a public consciousness capable of distinguishing truth from falsehood and resilient against narratives of destruction and fragmentation.
And on other Algeria-related news, the country is rolling out sweeping reforms from retirement benefits to narcotic courts as the government pushes major policy changes ahead of a key African trade summit. President Tinubu's cabinet greenlit a series of bold measures Sunday, fast-tracking everything from retirement age cuts for teachers to price caps on sacrificial livestock ahead of Eid al-Adha. The moves include specialized drug courts to tackle major narcotics cases, a single investment window to slash red tape for businesses, and new trade regulators to oversee import-export operations. The reforms come as Algeria gears up to host the Intra-African Trade Fair, with officials ordered to roll out the red carpet for participants. Algeria and Saudi Arabia strengthened economic ties Sunday through a series of strategic agreements signed during their joint business council meeting in Algiers. The deals span key sectors including trade, tourism, industry, and legal services, with notable partnerships between Algeria's tourism and travel company and Saudi Arabia's Alamna, as well as commercial agreements involving Gulf businesses or business company Magnum Trading, Katiam, and Ghait Holding. The two nations also established a legal alliance to facilitate cross-border cooperation, marking a significant step in enhancing bilateral business relations.
We witnessed the presence of more than 50 Saudi companies that visited Algeria. On the other hand, there was strong participation from Algerian companies, with more than 400 companies present. This indicates and reflects the intent of both sides to develop and advance. We meet in order to elevate the level of investment and trade exchanges between the two countries. Agreements were signed between the two sides, which we hope will stimulate further interest, especially from the Saudi side, to invest. This presents an opportunity for companies to get a closer look at the business climate, investment opportunities, and the Algerian market.
On a related note, Algeria is rolling out the red carpet for Saudi investment, with officials announcing bold plans to expand their $1 billion trade partnership. At Sunday's high-stakes business forum in Algiers, Saudi delegates pledged to become Algeria's top foreign investor targeting energy, agriculture, and tech sectors. Algerian leaders touted their country's improved business climate, while the Saudi Business Council chief promised strategic long-term investments. Shifting focus to another regional development, legal forces are joining the fight for Western Sahara's independence. On Sunday, Sahrawi and Algerian lawyers signed a cooperation pact to ramp up pressure on Morocco at the international courts. The agreement, aimed at a solidarity conference in Algiers, targets two fronts: prosecuting human rights abuses in the occupied territory and challenging Morocco's exploitation of Sahrawi natural resources. This legal alliance marks a new phase in the decades-old conflict, with jurists now opening a second front in the courtroom to complement the political battle at the UN.
This agreement has been concluded, and God willing, it will mark a new beginning in the field of human rights on the international stage towards international criminal courts and beyond, all in coordination with the Sahrawi Human Rights Union. As human rights advocates, we always adhere to international and UN resolutions that support the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, including Resolution 1514, which classified the Sahrawi issue as the last case of colonization in Africa, as well as Resolution 3734, which affirmed their right to self-determination.
A cooperation and solidarity agreement has been concluded between the Sahrawi Union of Jurists and the Algerian jurists within the framework of unconditional solidarity in support of the national cause, standing by our principles and our people in the occupied territories who are suffering greatly under occupation and continuous violations by the Moroccan regime.
Meanwhile, the Polisario Front is doubling down on its push for Western Sahara's independence, calling for decolonization and the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. In an interview with our channel, Sahrawi Interior Minister Ibrahim Bashir Bellah stressed that any solution must comply with UN resolutions and international law. The remarks come amid stalled UN-backed talks on the dispute territory, a decades-old conflict with no end in sight. On the same occasion, the Sahrawi Interior Minister urged the United States to uphold international agreements and support a peace process strictly tied to existing UN resolutions, warning that partial solutions won't satisfy his people's demands for self-determination.
والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية مطلوب منها أن تتقدم.
The United States of America is expected, as a strong democratic nation and a member of the Security Council, to uphold the covenants and charters it has signed, those which form the foundation of the United Nations Charter established in 1945. It would be an honor for the United States and its allies to choose the path of peace, but within the framework of the international legitimacy. Disregarding international legitimacy is, in my view, neither appropriate nor likely to lead to satisfactory outcomes.
Moving on to the Gaza file now, Zionist bombing killed at least 25 Palestinians in a coordinated strikes across Gaza Strip on Tuesday, targeting refugee camps, residential neighborhoods, and displacement families from north to south. Civil defense teams recovered the bodies of 11 martyrs in the central Gaza Strip following Zionist drone attacks, which targeted Palestinian gatherings in refugee camps and residential areas. In addition, at least 6 Palestinians were killed in occupation airstrikes on Rafah and Khan Yunis, with more casualties were reported in Gaza City and Beit Lahia due to the occupation shelling and airstrikes on fleeing displaced persons. For its part, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza reported Sunday that Zionist occupation attacks have killed 44 people and wounded 145 others in the past 24 hours alone, with hospitals overwhelmed by new casualties. The latest Zionist violence raises the death toll since March 18 to 1,827, with 4,828 injured. The ministry stated that the death toll from the Zionist occupation war on Gaza now exceeds 51,220 killed and 116,800 wounded. Tonight, a dire warning from the United Nations as Gaza's humanitarian crisis reaches a breaking point. The World Food Programme reports all the 2 million Palestinians in the territory are completely dependent on food aid, with supplies dwindling to critical levels. With key border crossings remaining closed, officials warn famine is now imminent, calling this a man-made catastrophe. The WFP is urgently demanding humanitarian access to prevent what it describes as the total collapse of Gaza's food system, a crisis that could claim countless lives if not addressed immediately.
Nearly 2 million people, the majority of whom are displaced, are currently living without any source of income and are entirely dependent on humanitarian assistance to meet their basic food needs. We warn of the increasing danger facing hundreds of thousands of residents in the Gaza Strip due to the severe depletion of food stocks, which threatens to trigger an imminent humanitarian catastrophe.
In another Middle East development, new violence erupts along the Lebanon border with Zionist airstrikes killing 6 people in southern Lebanon. The dead include 4 soldiers and 2 civilians, according to Lebanese officials. The attacks hit multiple locations. A drone strike destroyed a vehicle in Tyre, while other strikes targeted Hawla and the Iqlim al-Tufah region. Separately, 4 soldiers were killed when an occupation munitions exploded in Barqiyah. In another story, Baghdad is now hosting one of the region's largest defense exhibitions, bringing together 155 international firms to showcase cutting-edge military and cybersecurity tech. The annual event highlights Iraq's push to modernize its security capabilities amid regional tensions. Yasin Ruti has more.
Drones, military vehicles, surveillance cameras and much more. A full-scale arsenal of cutting-edge technologies lines the aisles of the 2025 Security, Defense, Military Industries and Cybersecurity exhibition. A powerful display of innovation and ambition. This high-profile event has become a strategic platform to spotlight the latest breakthroughs in defense and cyber tech, offering everything from advanced communication systems to next-gen surveillance tools and integrated radar solutions.
This is an opportunity for security ministries to explore technologies from companies and countries and to acquire what's needed for their missions, whether for the intelligence, national security, or counter-terrorism operations.
With strong international participation, including the United States, China and Iran, the exhibition is also a meeting ground for global expertise and cooperation. Organizers say the goal is clear: enhance Iraq's defense capacities, foster institutional knowledge sharing, and boost local defense industries.
What you see here answers direct requests from Iraq's defense and interior ministries, like the 300mm lenses, repairable surveillance cameras, global radar integration, and a full BAE system custom-made for Iraq's needs.
Battered by decades of conflict, Iraq is now striving to modernize its defense systems and signal its readiness to embrace innovation and sovereignty, particularly in an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. In a region facing complex security challenges, Iraq is now showing that its future defense isn't just about firepower, but technology, adaptability, and strategic foresight.
To other topical development, new ceasefire violations reported in eastern Ukraine as Russia accuses Ukrainian forces of shelling the Donetsk region. According to Russian state media, multiple explosions rocked Gorlovka and surrounding areas, with Moscow claiming Ukraine has conducted over 400 artillery strikes and nearly 1,000 drone attacks since the truce began. While Russia insists it's observing the ceasefire, these latest allegations threaten to derail already fragile peace efforts. For his part, Ukrainian President Zelensky takes to social media accusing Russia of violating its own truce with 59 separate attacks. The Ukrainian leader's post on X platform claims 5 major assaults occurred across front lines since the supposed pause began, directly challenging Moscow's narrative. President Volodymyr Zelensky called for extending the ceasefire beyond Easter, proposing an unconditional 30-day truce to reduce hostilities.
We propose extending the truce beyond Easter, which falls on April 20th. Russia must fully comply with the terms of the ceasefire. Ukraine's proposal to implement and extend the ceasefire for 30 days after midnight tonight is still on the table.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused Europe of attempting to openly revive the ideology of Nazism following the European Union's decision to ban its officials from attending the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. Lavrov condemned the move as deeply disrespectful to the memory of those who fought against fascism in World War II, claiming it reflects a broader trend of historical revisionism in the West. In another topical news story tonight, a stark warning from America's NATO ambassador. European allies must significantly ramp up defense spending or face potential U.S. cutback. In a post on X platform, Ambassador Matthew Tucker stressed the importance of the increased contributions, crediting President Trump for shaping a results-driven U.S. policy within the alliance. Thousands of protesters flooded streets from New York to Los Angeles on Saturday in a sweeping demonstration against President Trump's policy agenda. Chanting crowds voiced opposition to his immigration plans, potential government cuts, and positions on overseas conflicts, while showing solidarity with immigrant communities and universities. Now let's take a quick look at other headlines making waves globally. Here's the news in brief with Salman Asib and Safyan Kanturi.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said negotiations with the US over Tehran's nuclear program was marked by cautious optimism. Posting on X Saturday, he noted the relatively positive atmosphere in Rome, which helped advance discussions on key principles for a potential deal. He added that the 2015 nuclear agreement is no longer fit for the current stage.
Beijing urged the US to settle trade disputes peacefully and avoid the trap of mutual loss. China's ambassador to the US, Qi Fang, warned that Beijing is ready to respond to rising trade tensions, citing the Great Depression and 1930 US tariffs as cautionary examples.
The Sudanese army announced on Sunday that 7 civilians were killed and 3 others injured in an artillery strike by the Rapid Support Forces targeting civil areas in the city of El Fasher, southwest Sudan. This comes as the Rapid Support Forces attempts to seize control of the city, while the Sudanese army insists its forces remain firmly positioned there.
The death toll from Thursday's attack by gunmen in Benue State, central Nigeria, has risen to 56, according to state governor's media advisor. The suspected herder-led assault is part of ongoing clashes with farmers that have killed hundreds and displaced nearly 2 million in one of Nigeria's main farming regions.
Algeria's Ministry of Culture announced a rare sighting of the Emmaus leopard in northern Hagar Park, Tamanrasset, documented by a local citizen. The ministry said this confirms the species still inhabits part of North and West Africa, highlighting the need to activate a conservation plan. The last recorded sighting was in April 2020.
Finally, to a lighter note, Algiers became a global foodie paradise this week as chefs from 14 countries joined 180 culinary stores at the Algerian Culinary Art Festival. For 3 mouth-watering days, kitchens sizzled with tradition as competitors battled for the title of the best authentic dish. Here's Zara Farjani with the full story.
Between the scent of spices, the rhythm of boiling pots, and culinary skills passed down through generations, a whole chapter of Algerian history comes alive. Under the theme Flavors of Our Ancestors, this gastronomic gathering paid tribute to the rich culinary and cultural heritage of Algeria and beyond. Seeming dishes, precise gestures, and gourmet smiles turned the event into a true celebration of tradition and creativity, where chefs and food lovers from all around the world gathered to share, cook, and connect.
I'm preparing a couscous with acorns and seafood, one inspired by the mountains, the other by the sea, both proudly Algerian.
From the fineness of coastal recipes to the generosity of southern dishes, Algerian cuisine revealed its incredible diversity. In Biskra, for instance, tradition lives on in the heartwarming shakshuka.
In Biskra, we love to honor our guests. This shakshuka is prepared with meat and chicken. It's our way of welcoming with generosity.
In a vibrant and festive atmosphere, culinary cultures from near and far met at the table. Dishes weren't just savored, they were shared, explained, and celebrated.
We taste, we exchange, we discover what connects us. Algeria's cuisine is rich, and this event allows us to truly integrate into its culture.
We introduced our Syrian desserts, discovered Algerian dishes, and connected with other cultures. It's about learning and sharing together.
Through this festival, cuisine once again proved to be what it's always been, a universal language, one that speaks of memories, hospitality, and identity. In Algeria, the flavors of our ancestors are more than just food. They are a living memory passed from plate to heart.
And that wraps up our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms. Thank you for watching, and good night.